and welcome to Roundtable. I'm your host, Adam Cook. This week, our show splits neatly down the middle into two distinct segments. Later on, as part of the Front Porch, I'll speak to a senior director of the Department of Health and Wellness about the plan to integrate Ukrainian healthcare professionals into Nova Scotia's medical system and what will happen if and when that program expands to our Strait Area hospitals and medical clinics. But to kick things off, you might not know that Roundtable just celebrated its first anniversary. And the first Roundtable panel discussion that we held for the show was between three municipal councillors. All of them had just been elected in the municipal vote of 2020. Well, we've decided to reconvene that municipal council panel once again with representatives from Port Hawkesbury, Mulgrave, and Richmond County. So we're going to catch up right now with Melanie Sampson, Krista Luddington, and Jason Aucoin to talk about the different issues that their municipalities are each dealing with, but also some common threads that happen every so often for Strait Area municipalities and are popping up right now as we head towards the end of 2022. Here's the latest Roundtable Municipal Government panel right now. And we are pleased to welcome back to Telil's series Roundtable, the three municipal representatives that helped us kick off the series with a municipal government panel just a year ago. We're pleased to welcome back from Port Hawkesbury, Jason Aucoin, from Mulgrave, Krista Luddington, and from Richmond County, Melanie Sampson. Thank you all for being a part of this once again.
Thanks, Adam.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Adam.
All right, well, let's get things going with just a basic snapshot of the kinds of things that your individual councils are focusing on and looking at the time being. I'd like to start with you, Jason Aucoin, if I could. We've seen some of the developments that have been going on in Port Hawkesbury, some of the conversations around the table. What do you think are one or two of the most crucial issues that the town is dealing with right at this moment?
I think one of the biggest, it's not only a Port Hawkesbury issue, it's a Strait of Canso issue, and that's the green hydrogen and the wind energy is top, in the top one or two priorities, I think, for every municipality in this area. And it's very exciting times, and it's just another example of how the neighboring municipalities are working well together, and also working well with the provincial and federal government to try to see this through. And I guess number two, or 1A, 1B, would be the housing issue that still exists. And I don't necessarily like to call it a housing issue. It's really an opportunity. So we have an opportunity for developers to come into the area and take advantage of a situation. And we've been getting some traction from the private sector, but also just this last spring, Port Hawkesbury, through the Chamber of Commerce put out a request for proposal for a housing consultant for the town of Port Hawkesbury on a 1-year pilot project. And New Dawn Enterprise was the winning component. And they're doing a fantastic job. They're doing lots of research, and we hope to have the first report from New Dawn within the next week or two.
All right, we'll look forward to seeing that. Exciting times in terms of potential housing developments there. Thank you, Jason Aucoin. We want to shift the focus over to you, Melanie Sampson, for our second check-in. And Jason Aucoin mentioning green hydrogen. Of course, we're seeing some possibility of development right in your district, right in Point Tupper. But apart from that, or if you want to tie right into that, what are some of the biggest issues that Richmond Council is dealing with right now? What are some of the ones that you think are really catching your attention?
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree with Jason more. It's really a Strait Area excitement. I think there's like a lot of building excitement around Point Tupper right now. Somebody said there hasn't been this much chatter about Point Tupper since the 60s. So that's not a bad thing. Like just meeting with a lot of people, Everwind's coming into town. They've really taken a great love for Richmond County and for the Strait Area, right? Port Hawkesbury area as well. They're very involved with the community. So that's really nice. And I think there's a lot of exciting things that are going to happen there, but we do have to same as in Port Hawkesbury, as Jason's mentioned, we have to look at bigger and more things. Our strategic plan is, it's time for us to action that. So that's going to be, I think, fairly exciting. I think that it ties in well with our trails plan, which we just received, with, our accessibility plan. So the past 2 years, I think we've done a lot of researching and a lot of, talking to members of the public and kind of figuring out what everybody wants. And now it's time for us to do something, big things. I would say, like West Richmond School is still not having it. We did a study on that. We did a check-in on that. So that's going to be something I think that's going to come up soon, where we're going to need to move on that, because it's just continuing to deteriorate. So we're definitely going to move on that. And I think big thing for us at Richmond County right now, we've got a new CAO, we've got a new clerk. And that's one of those areas where, you feel that, because you lose the experience. We had 2 very experienced staff there, and we were very lucky to have them for a long time. But now we've got some fresh eyes and some new people and sometimes new ideas. And so with that comes a little bit of excitement too. So I think it's good. I think we've got a lot of work to do in the next couple of years for sure.
All right. We look forward to seeing what comes of some of these issues. And we have had the chance to meet some of the newcomers to Richmond staff. So they've been very, very happy to work with us, and us with them as well, too. Krista Luddington, I want to shift over to you in Mulgrave and get the view from Mulgrave. And we had a new face join council just this past spring as well, too. Beyond that, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about some of the big issues that your council is dealing with these days.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Adam. So one of the biggest things that have been on the plate is we just got a bridge completely replaced. Things are wrapping up there, and so it's coming along quite nicely. Just finished, a whole boatload of paving along Main Street and McLeod Street, and so we're really excited about that. Obviously the green energy impacts us in Mulgrave as well, and we're super thrilled to see that kind of, continue along in the conversations. And I think that it is going to change the face of the Strait region, and really looking forward to seeing that come to fruition. We've been keeping busy with marina development as well. There's been some significant projects happening in the Logie Street, McNair's Cove Park, down by the Front Porch area, and we've seen a revitalization project come to fruition there this past summer, where we had community really band together and come and do a community build in the park, doing some pergolas and some beautification. We've incorporated Youth Council. This is our second year with Youth Council on board, and we have a lovely representative by the name of Victoria Cook, who has been doing some lovely work there. All in all, it's been incredibly busy. And then, as you mentioned, we do have a new face around the table, but no stranger to the area.
What does it feel like for you, having been one of a couple of new councillors coming on board to Mulgrave Town Council just over 2 years ago, to now be able to show someone else the ropes and to be able to offer your perspective and also to hear their perspective as town council sits in Mulgrave?
Yeah, for sure. So our by-election was this past summer, and the winning candidate was Debbie King. Debbie has worked for the town for the last 42 years. And so although she's new to the council table on this side of things, certainly no stranger to the community. And she has a ton of knowledge in terms of, how things ran in the 42 years that she worked behind the desk at the town office. And so she actually has a lot of knowledge that is super beneficial to us around the table, who, of course, I'm the newest around the table besides herself. But even still, the most veteran person around the table would be our mayor, and this is his 10th year. So, comparing that to the 42 years of experience that she has, I think she's an extremely welcome addition. And really, it's been wonderful to work with her so far, and really look forward to the next 2 years.
And you mentioned Mayor Ron Chisholm currently celebrating his 10th year in municipal politics, and we're actually almost right to the day of his first election, and he actually defeated the former Mayor Marnie Simmons in running for council. So we wish Mayor Ron Chisholm well as he begins his second decade in municipal politics. We'll see how things go there. Wanted to pick up with all of you. A couple of you have talked about green hydrogen, and I've been curious about the new legislation that the provincial government has been introducing in the fall, and also amendments to existing legislation to make it easier for green hydrogen projects to set up. In making the description, provincial officials, including the Minister of Natural Resources and Renewables, Tory Rushton, consistently mentioned the Strait of Canso as being a key area for green hydrogen development and also wind energy development. So just going around the table here, everybody, what do you think about the idea that the Strait could have such a prominent role to play? Jason Aucoin, I'd like to start with you.
Thank you, Adam. Well, if there's one thing that we have in the Strait, it's lots of wind. We also have lots of water. So the recipe is there. And to have it so close to home, to have it in an area that has one of the deepest ice-free ports, you know, we really have all the ingredients for the recipe for this development. And to be able to bring it into an area that's been, you know, we've been promised many things over many decades. We had a lot of white elephants in the room. This is real. And it's extremely exciting. You know, when you go to an information session and you see the owner of the company at these sessions talking to the public, answering questions, it's just so thrilling and refreshing. As many know, I've traveled away for 14 years back and forth for work. And now I see that people are going to be traveling here to work. And it's a very exciting time to be where we're at.
And you're mentioning the company, I assume you're referring to Trent Vichy, the CEO of Everwind Fuels there?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, he has been very prominent in public affairs and in public appearances. You can tell that he and his company really want to make a go of it here. I want to shift things over to you, Melanie Sampson, on the same topic. You mentioned that takes in Point Tupper, that's in your district, very important to Richmond County in terms of its heavy industries and its overall economic base. Your thoughts on the provincial focus on the Strait area as a potential gold mine for wind energy and also for green hydrogen?
I mean, I think it bodes well for the ability for us to build that industry here in the Strait area, right? If even the provincial government, you know, if all levels of government are recognizing that we are the place, then we're the place, right? So I think, you know, as Jason has said, there's been a lot of promises over the years and a lot of hopes of things to come that haven't come, right? And so this one it just has a different feel. It's very real. You know, like yesterday, the warden just passed on an invitation to me to join the Point Tupper Clean Energy Project Community Liaison Committee, right? Like we're getting very serious and we're getting very close. And I think that, you know, all these companies, they require levels of government to support them in different ways, right? And we have some pieces that we need to, you know, be ready for as well. We're thinking about wind energy. We've been talking about, you know, a turbine bylaw and what that could look like, or having blanketed areas. So, you know, we're also aware that we need to do things as a county to also be open, welcoming, and ready for all of these projects. But I just feel super excited about what's to come, because I feel like it's coming. Like, again, last summer we had lunch with some representatives who were talking about hydrogen, and I went with a cautious thought in my mind. And when I was finished the meeting, I was thinking, this is not a maybe, this is going to happen.
All right, thanks, Melanie. Krista Luddington, will shift the focus over to you because you mentioned green energy and green hydrogen as well in your opening remarks. So what do you feel Mulgrave's stake is in this? I mean, there's certainly some possibility for wind energy development. There is a turbine on the outskirts of town, and has been there for a few years. But do you get the sense that Mulgrave could be a key player here, or is it a matter of if the Strait Area wins with wind energy and green hydrogen, then Mulgrave wins as well? What are your thoughts on your town's stake in all of this?
Yeah, so I think a little bit of both. I do think that we can play a key role in this development. And what I can say is I've been incredibly appreciative of Everwind and their want to communicate with community partners. Very early on, you know, we got an invitation where Trent wanted to come in and sit down with council, like one-on-one, to have a discussion around, you know, what this could look like and what the impacts are on the community. And there are many, many positive impacts on community. So that gave me a good feeling right off the hop, and it's really been growing since then. It's been an open line of communication, which has been wonderful. It's been, every time you turn around, it's in the news. And so it does have a very different feeling than some of the projects that have been brought up in the past, where it was like, you know, put on your shades, the future is looking bright. And, you know, it just didn't come to fruition the way that we had anticipated. And so, yeah, I'm equally as excited and share the sentiments of both Jason and Melanie that good things are coming.
If you just look at the investment that they've made into the, you know, the airport, it's just that those are all key indicators of how serious they are about moving all of these things forward. And they're just one of the players, right? But I think it's like many of the things, it's like once you start it, then it grows from there. And I think they're just the piece that's going to start the ball rolling, and then it's going to roll.
Adam, one thing that was explained to me when I was speaking to somebody who is internationally recognized in the wind energy sector, I said, wouldn't it be really nice if the Strait Area could become the Fort McMurray of green energy? And he shook his head at me and he said, you're thinking too small. He said, the Strait Area can be the Saudi Arabia of the green energy.
My goodness.
That kind of put a smile on my face.
Well, I'll tell you what, you got to think big to be big, as the saying goes. So I'm glad some people are thinking big in this regard. That's terrific. Right on. So kind of along those lines, and I mean, we're talking about Everwind's investment in the community, and we've seen other industries looking to move into the area and set up shop, make that kind of community level investment. But I want to talk a little bit about community development and what that means to each of you and to your municipalities. For some people, it's investing in streets and in bridges, and for other people, it's investing in infrastructure, it's looking at housing, it could be looking at any number of things, could even be changing the identity of the community. So I want to juggle the mix a little bit. I'd like to start with you, Melanie Sampson in Richmond County, but I'd like to hear from each of you what you feel community development means in each of your areas and how you feel your municipal council is pursuing that. So Melanie Sampson, let's start with you in Richmond County. What does community development mean to you and to the people you represent?
So I think, in terms of community development, and I think in terms of like infrastructure and things like that, like we're very focused in Richmond County about the infrastructure that we own and we maintain, right? So we're spending a lot of our Canada Community Building Fund money, on upgrades to water and sewer and all of those pieces that are all very important. But we're really trying as a council, we're starting to see, we reopened this grant application, right? So we have a pocket of money that we're able to give out to some community groups to help them leverage the money to gather money from other levels of government. And we're starting to see some really great results with that. So we're seeing lots of community halls who are getting roofs repaired. There was a farm project, and I apologize to those folks, I don't remember the name of the project. They sent us pictures this week, how they leveraged the money we gave them to expand the pasture in their co-op. So for me, I see us supporting community in terms of being there, right? And so also helping them to find the places where they can get some of that funding, but also for us to give them, it may not be a lot of funding because we don't necessarily have a lot of money to give out, but some funding that gets them in the game for other funding pieces. So I do see that being very important. We've also been toying with the idea, of course, of trying to support community groups in different ways. Through our own staff, we now have the Richmond County Community Connectors. Basically, it's just gathering together all the community groups, representatives of community groups across the county. We're participatory in those groups, and I think those are all the ways that we're helping to develop our communities right now, anyway.
All right, there's a whole lot of ground covered there. I appreciate your thoughts on that, Melanie. Thank you. We'll shift things over to you, Krista Luddington in Mulgrave. Obviously, the MARA group, Mulgrave and Area Revitalization Association, has been busy over the past few years. You're involved there. But with that and looking beyond that as well, too, what does community development mean to you, and what does it mean to Mulgrave Town Council at this point?
When it comes to community development, it does look a little bit different for us because we are such a small community. and we're a tight-knit community. What we're finding is, I think we talked about it last year, through COVID, we had an influx of families moving back home. And we've been able to retain those families and see more come into town since the last time that we did this roundtable discussion. And so that to me is, it's super exciting, because the people who are coming in are bringing skill sets, and they're joining committees, and they're volunteering, and they're helping out in ways that go well beyond what we're accustomed to. And that to me it's incredible. You know, when you have a graphic designer who is willing to hop onto different committees and provide their work, you know, to support the goals of different committees that they belong to and different organizations, that goes a long way in a small town, and it really helps to, you know, start to push the objectives and the goals of each one of those kind of committees. So to me, I absolutely love the idea that we're continuing to bring new people, like people who lived here before, they're coming back home and they're bringing their spouses and their children, and they're working here, and, you know, these kids are going to school in the Strait region, and so we're building in that way. But you're right, you mentioned Mara, and there's some significant work happening around that table as well. In terms of the marina development, you know, we're working really diligently in trying to access funding so that we can have a viable marina area. It would be lovely to partner with our neighbors across the water, with the town of Port Hawkesbury, to see if, you know, once we are able to get that into motion and then eventually developed, maybe there could be a tourism operation that travels from marina to marina and beyond, right? So I think there's a lot happening, and it is a really exciting time, because we finally, I feel like, have gotten to a point where people have been able to, you know, certainly learn from the past, and there's been a whole lot of history and a whole lot of lessons to be taken from that. But instead of dwelling on it, I think as a community, we're ready to move forward and take that learning and apply it to, you know, what's to come. So to me, that's, when it comes to community development, it's all of those pieces.
Jason Aucoin, it sounds like Krista is using this Zoom call to make a marina to marina invitation to you. But I don't know how subtle it was.
Always an open invitation. Absolutely.
Yes. All right. But seriously, though, Jason, your thoughts on Port Hawkesbury and what it means for community development there? I mean, the town has gone through a bit of a sea change in how it looks and how it operates with the arrival of Destination Reef Street, active transportation trails set up in different areas. There are a couple now being established down by the boardwalk along the waterfront. Beyond that, or even including that, when I say community development in Port Hawkesbury, what do you say?
I will touch on a couple of things that you have just mentioned. You know, the active transportation trails that we've been putting in place, and you know, over the next 3 years, we're going ahead with a lot more. I would definitely like to speak to the one on Macquarie Extension.
Yes.
You know, I see lots of people every day coming out from the nursing home and the manor, walking on that trail. We have one gentleman who's a veteran who's out every day on his wheelchair on that trail now. He feels safe to go up to the bank or up to the drugstore or whatever, wherever he needs to go in that area of town. So just that one little trail is so satisfying to see people who weren't necessarily able to get out before and didn't feel safe before to get out and really enjoy the weather in the summer and to be active. And it's just fantastic. And we spoke with the waterfront. So we have torn up the boardwalk and we've put an active transportation trail down there. There's one section of it that will be complete very shortly. And along with that, Water Street will also be recapped, resurfaced. So that's a major development on the waterfront to make it look better and safer and more accessible. And when I think of development, I think of, you know, our fantastic trails committee, what they're doing with our nature trails, and it's all volunteer. And it's just, you can't say a big enough thank you to the volunteers. We had a new family move in from Ontario who reached out to me and said, is there any way I can volunteer on the trails committee? Absolutely. I gave them Larry's contact, and they're there most nights that they're out. So it's like Krista said, it's nice to see people coming into the community and getting involved. Mm. And as far as other developments, you know, we're pushing that needle on housing. I think New Dawn was the first major step that we really needed. You know, we have a great staff at the town of Port Hawkesbury, but this housing file isn't something that can be worked on from the side of a desk. So I think a not-for-profit is what we really need. We've had a couple of new businesses open recently, like we have a new tattoo parlor opened up in town, and that's a gentleman my age who moved away for many years, and he came back and he started his own business in town, which is great to see. And the Causeway Shopping Center just sold, so that we have new owners there. So somebody new that's interested in the area, obviously. They've got a lot of money in the game here, and obviously they have some plans of changing what they have now to hopefully make it look a lot nicer and update it a bit.
The front and the back, I might add.
Well, that will be one of the first conversations. Will be the back of the building, yes. So I see us doing lots of little things to make the town look better. You did speak about Reeve Street. I made this clear in numerous public meetings. I'll make it clear here as well. The town of Port Hawkesbury does not own Reeve Street. The province does, and the province will decide what happens on Reeve Street with some discussion from council. And they did the survey of the public. How much influence we will have on that, I'm not sure. But that is a provincial highway, and they will do as they see fit.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to seeing what's going to happen there. I know that the province is scheduled to make a presentation to town council on Destination Reeve Street within the next couple of months. So we'll see how that goes from there. We are heading into our final couple of minutes, so I'd like to give a couple of minutes for each of you to offer some final thoughts before we wrap up our roundtable municipal panel. We'll start with you, Melanie Sampson. Just take a moment or two. Anything else that you'd like to add that we might have missed?
I don't think so. I think just, you know, as when you invited me to this roundtable, I was like, holy smokes, how has it already been a year since we did this the first time? And then I, you know, think, how has it been 2 years since we were all elected to our respective councils? It just seems that time goes by very quickly. And it's always good that at times like this, you know, an evening like tonight, you really help us, I think, to reflect on what's happened in the past couple of years. And sometimes for us to reflect on what hasn't happened in the past couple of years that we really had in our mind to get done. And so I think it does give a little bit of renewed energy to perhaps have something really great to talk about next year, assuming we'll do it again. But, you know, I guess I would just, you know, we're coming into the holiday season, so I may as well take the opportunity. I'd love to take it to just wish everyone a good holiday season, whatever that looks like for you. And again, just wish each of my colleagues at their council tables good luck in the next year, and looking forward to working together on different projects, and certainly green hydrogen being one of those. So just looking forward to some prosperity in the Strait region.
Is your Christmas tree powered by green hydrogen, by the way?
No, but it's LED. So, I mean,
nicely done.
I'm trying to be somewhat environmentally conscious.
Yes. Well, you've not only provided great perspective, but you've made this panel 100% more festive. So thank you very much. Thank you. Krista Luddington, we shift over to you. Any final thoughts?
No, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you again, Adam, for, you know, having us slow down for a second and actually have this discussion and be able to come together as municipal neighbors. I really, really am looking forward to kind of closing the gap. Sometimes it can be easy to live in silos, right? And unintentionally, of course, but each individual council table has so much on the go, and 4 years, sounds like a long time. It certainly is not. So to think, same sentiment, Melanie, to think that we're halfway through, it's just wild. And so to be able to kind of come out of our silos and work together on certain projects, I'm really looking forward to that, because I know that there's so many people with so much knowledge that if we can share it across the Strait region, that everybody will kind of benefit from that. So looking forward to that, looking forward to, you know, taking off a few more goals that we've got set as a council in the coming year, and looking forward to sharing that again next year with y'all.
Well, thank you so much, Krista. And I certainly do hope we can do this every year, and even more frequently than every year, to tell you the truth. It just happened to be a year gap, but we're glad to have all three of you here. And the last word goes to Jason Aucoin, who just finished up his first year as deputy mayor of the town of Port Hawkesbury. Jason, your final thoughts as we wind things down here.
First of all, it's one thing I've noticed over the last 2 years that I didn't realize before I got involved was just how close the neighboring municipalities work together and how well they work together. It's incredible. A lot goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize. And like Krista said, you know, sometimes you get tunnel vision and you're focusing on your goals and your needs for your community. But there's so many regional projects and so many regional committees that we do together that it's really nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy working with the council here in Port Hawkesbury, but it's really nice when you get to work with councillors from other municipalities as well. It's refreshing. And Adam, again, I'd like to thank you for setting this up. It gives us, like Krista said, a little break from your day-to-day, and it gives you a chance to reflect, and I appreciate that. And I just want to give a shout out before we leave to Michelle Farrow and her crew, who are organizing our Christmas parade and our Christmas shows and our Santa at the Civic Center coming up in the next couple of weeks. And I encourage all the watchers to get out and participate and have a happy holidays.
All right. Thank you so much, Jason. By the way, this is my opportunity to say to Krista and Melanie, do either of you have Christmas events you'd like to promote?
Absolutely, always. I'm just trying to go through them in my head as Jason is saying those. So obviously St. Peter's does their Festival of Trees. There's a Santa event, like a drive-through Santa event that's going to be put on in Ayrshire. I believe that Dima's putting that project on. The Louisdale Lions Club always has they have a Jingle Bell Walk. I think that's on Wednesday of next week, if that, whatever that date is, I'm pretty sure, but it's well advertised. And then they have the lighting of their tree. Santa will be there taking pictures and all of the good things. And of course, there are always beautiful breakfasts all across Richmond County. Pretty much every Sunday you can find one, and they're all going holiday themed in the next few weeks. So always lots of fun times all around Richmond County. Lots of good food and lots of good people.
Good stuff. And Krista, I know Mulgrave has had wonderful Christmas traditions over the years, including the fire department taking Santa Claus around on Christmas Eve. Anything you'd like to plug for Mulgrave's Christmas celebrations before we finish off?
Yeah, so we've got a full slate of events on the go as well. And I would like to take the time to mention we have a new recreation director with the town. Her name is Fallon Pettipaw. And of course, you know, with Heather Brennan gone, and then we had an interim recreation director, Heather Reed, who did an amazing job as well. Big shoes to fill, and Fallon has certainly jumped in with both feet, and she has been doing just a wonderful job. And so we're working things out in the next week or so to kind of get that out on the Facebook page. So loads of events. There's going to be tree lighting down in McNair's Cove Park. There's going to be our old-fashioned Christmas that it's the parade that leads to the museum, where you'll see Santa and Mrs. Claus handing out treats and reading stories to the kids. There's going to be contests around town for best lit up house. There are a couple of categories there. And so all of the details will be first and foremost in our community newsletter that goes out in the first week in December, but also anything and everything is found on the Mulgrave Recreation Department Facebook page.
Between Fallon Pettipaw, Shannon Murray in Richmond County, and Michelle Farrow, still fairly new, only about a year and a half in Port Hawkesbury. It's great to see a new wave of recreation directors promoting community spirit, not just at Christmas time, but all year round. All right. That is it. We're out of time. Thank you so much to each and every one of you for joining me on the latest Roundtable Municipal panel. Krista Luddington is from the town of Mulgrave, Jason Aucoin from the town of Port Hawkesbury, and Melanie Sampson is the District 3 Councillor for Richmond County. Thanks, everybody, for joining me tonight.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
And now it's time for our regular segment here on Roundtable, the Front Porch, which deals with newcomer and immigration issues for the Strait Area and across Nova Scotia. You might recall that back in August, Nova Scotia introduced a new program designed to speed up the licensing process for Ukrainian-born healthcare professionals trying to get into Nova Scotia's medical system. That included a new navigator for the eastern zone of the Nova Scotia Health Authority. That navigator is based in Sydney, but as you're about to hear, there is a possibility that the program could soon have roots in the Strait Area. To get the answers for these questions and others, and just to get a general snapshot on how the program is going, I spoke to Tara Sampali. She is a Senior Director for Nova Scotia Health. Here's our conversation about the Ukrainian healthcare professionals movement right now. And we are pleased to welcome for our Front Porch segment this week on Telil's Roundtable, a Senior Director with Nova Scotia Health. She is Tara Sampali, here to tell us about the progress of the Ukrainian recruitment program for healthcare professionals. Tara Sampali, thank you for joining me on Telil Community Television today.
Thank you so much for having me, Adam. Really a pleasure to be part of this.
Well, we have you here for a number of reasons. Most specifically, we wanted to follow up on the program that was announced in late August by Nova Scotia Health to bring newly arrived Ukrainian health professionals into the system here in Nova Scotia. We understand that there have been some success stories, and we heard about those when the program was first announced. But basically, can you tell us how the program has been going through the fall?
Absolutely. And, you know, it's such a great opportunity for the province because there's such a learning opportunity here. And it's not just new to Nova Scotia, it's across Canada. We're trying to learn as we're trying to implement. There's lots of activities overall. In Nova Scotia, especially, we have thought about this as an opportunity to develop a more comprehensive approach because we know from our previous experiences where we have had internationally educated trained professionals come to the province, they talk about it's not just about them, but it's about them and their families and how we create a welcoming type of an atmosphere as we bring them to the healthcare system, but we're also bringing them to communities across the province. And that also means that we are trying to really understand how the communities need to engage and what kind of preparedness and support we can provide overall. So it has been our, kind of journey in Nova Scotia that as we work, and the Ukrainian community have taught us so much. We have learned on the go. For instance, as you know, when people started to come to the province, one of the things that was important was to create some sort of a welcoming site or front-facing information. And that's where we very quickly stood up the website where people could land on and say, here's the welcoming page for Ukrainian professionals. And within that, we also started to understand there's so much to learn about the Ukrainian community and how we actually bring key partners. If you think about if you're a Ukrainian physician, you need the College of Physicians and Surgeons to be part. If you're a nurse, you need the College of Nurses. And then you have our HR process, and we have a number of stakeholders that need to be part of it. So we created this really comprehensive intake survey so people could populate their information. And then in the back end, we had all of these key stakeholders have access to that information. That is an amazing database and a support for learning opportunity because there's so much we are understanding. So that was the next thing. Then the third thing we knew was, we had to front face about how do we support the professionals in terms of their own community front-facing type of discussions where we have the language type of things to navigate, but also the type of supports, even understanding from their background and education, which can be quite different, but our colleges need to understand very quickly what that means for us. So we had these community navigator positions, which was really great. And we have one for every zone. I think we are still waiting to recruit for the Western zone. We're working on it. For instance, Irena is for Eastern Zone, and she's been doing a phenomenal job as a community navigator. And we also have another position, Adam, that we're trying to put together is that we have Ukrainian physicians and Ukrainian nurses. So it will be other professionals as well, but these two we are standing up are people who can be mentors who are either already in the system working as physicians or nurses, or people who have just come who can help us understand the barriers that we are facing as people enter the system. So these are new roles. And what we hope to build is as they start to become part of the system, they then become mentors for their own professional and their own community. So a Ukrainian physician would be a mentor for other physicians that come into the process, as a Ukrainian nurse would become a mentor for other nurses that come to the system. We're doing this with other international communities as well. We have for India, for Philippines, doing the same thing, and we'll do with Kenya. So there's a lot of work that's happening in the back end overall, and that from the Ukrainian community, we've heard a lot. So this is where we are in our status, and there are some really great success stories. But I'll stop there if maybe you have another question to follow up, but this was kind of the lay of the land.
We're talking about the Eastern Zone, and I do understand that there has been a Ukrainian navigator set up in Sydney, and there's a strong Ukrainian community in that part of the Cape Breton Regional Municipality. Can you tell us a little bit about how things have been going there and how the community has been working with the navigator to be able to make newcomers welcome in these new roles as healthcare professionals?
Yeah, and I think that has been really important for us. And it's essentially the reason why we have these community navigators in individual zones, because there are zone level variations across the province and the needs. So when we think about Eastern Zone and with Irena, there are lots of supports that she would provide in terms of, just as we have started to navigate this, the English proficiency, for instance, that's a whole layer of work that needs to happen, because people have been coming with different level of comfort. And we also go with the community members and their level, not only just that something is a test score or somebody assesses in a very quick snapshot conversation. We also feel it's about the individuals feeling like they are comfortable entering into the healthcare system. So as you know, we have created, and this is not unique to Eastern Zone, but overall is that there's an orientation program that supports the people to enter into the system successfully, learning about the Canadian healthcare system at the highest level. So in the Eastern Zone, Irena's role would be to support, understanding of the English proficiency requirements. So we have actually contracted out, and we'll be doing this work where we can very quickly get people to where they need to be, because this has been one of the barriers. We need almost front-facing support, given the numbers of people that we have, the opportunities with healthcare professionals, that we don't want this to become a barrier. So the English assessment, if people are assessed and they feel comfortable, we want them to get to the next phase of work. English language proficiency program. So we have that. So Irena will be working with people who are in Eastern Zone who are willing to work. And we are getting to work on the English proficiency side. This is a big success for us because the funding has been created, especially to address that, so we can bring people in quickly and reduce that barrier. The second tier of work we know is sometimes there are restrictions on their work permit. It's harder to understand, and sometimes we get into the process and we learn. This has been challenging because it's not only at the local level, we need those medical exams to happen quickly, and so the capacity right now is not as what it should be, so we're working through that. The second tier is the restriction has to be removed at a federal level. That takes a little bit of time. So Irena and community navigators, what they do is they help people go through the process. What supports do they need? So they're meeting with them weekly so that they can give anything that they need, because it's a long application and, it takes considerable efforts to do it. So that's another layer of work the community navigators do to really get people comfortable on what their needs are and support them through the process.
So how has it been going in terms of integrating healthcare professionals into the system then? You've spoken about some of the barriers and some of the things that have to be overcome, both from a language and cultural perspective and simply from a matter of licensing, a matter of fitting into the formal system here in Nova Scotia. How has it been going both in the Eastern Zone and across the province in terms of integrating the newcomer Ukrainians into the actual healthcare system?
Yeah, so that's the next. So what we have going is, we are working with the College of Nursing and working with the College of Physicians. So when we think about the Eastern Zone and the people coming through, so we do have, when they complete the survey, they tell us, right off the bat, we would like to be employed in some sort of a position. While we are trying to build up our licensure requirements and everything, we want an experience of the healthcare system. So we've created different types of positions. that give them the view of the healthcare system, even as they're doing their bridging programs and others. Because, I'll be honest, it's not been an easy path, like, getting it done very quickly and through the door. And we have been very diligent on trying to understand what other provinces or jurisdictions may be doing, so we can really adapt that and adopt that into Nova Scotia system. It's not an easy process. However, we are doing everything we can to help people who are saying, I want to work today, to give them based on other types of backgrounds they may have. For instance, if they have backgrounds in research, we want to give them research type of positions within the healthcare system. Or there could be other types of, aid positions, which are not ideal, but they give you some sort of an, entry into the healthcare system and to help people understand it. Coordinator type of roles where people can come in and support other aspects while they're doing these programs. And also we have created with the college our shortest type of bridging program, which we are bringing people into. We are just testing that. 4 months to transition to practice.
Okay.
So our college is working with many Ukrainian professionals, and that will include people from the Eastern Zone, where we'll have multiple cohorts starting next year. So where we can actually, and it'll be sponsored programs. So we also recognize that people cannot be in full-time programs while they're trying to do childcare and other aspects. And also they're in a new country, so they'll have to have income. So we cannot just say, come into a full-time education program, and then it's 4 months, and then you're going to enter into something. So we are also trying to understand how we can support them. So as a sponsor, so they will be salaried as they enter. So a specific position has been created, especially for the nurses. So we have still ways to go with the physician group, but for the nurses, we have some specific things that we have started to stand up. And that goes into 3 months as a transition to practice. So that's a very new program. So we are trying to work with the Ukrainian nurses. We have very few who are in that path. So we are trying to look at that. The College of Physicians and Surgeons, we are trying to understand key considerations, how we support that group, but by also allowing physicians to work in alternate roles. So Eastern Zone will be very similar to across the province, is that we will be working. So our community navigators, the College of Nursing, what we're doing, the shortest bridging pathway, these are all going to be important for our Ukrainian professionals, because if they want to be part of it, we want to ensure that we are really engaging them.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing what happens then over the next 3 to 4 months as this process continues. One of the reasons we did want to have you on here, Tara Sampali, is to talk a little bit about what happens next in terms of spreading out the program. Now, I know that the Western Zone hadn't been brought on in the original draft, but it's hopeful that they'll be able to start going soon. And here in the Eastern Zone, we do have a navigator in Sydney, as we've talked about a number of times now. There isn't a Ukrainian navigator set up for the Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health Committee. Is there a hope that a navigator for Ukrainian health professionals can be brought in at this level as well?
Absolutely. So the way we have positioned this is as many as we need to really build this out in a way that is supportive. So we do have a budget that's been created specifically for these navigator type of roles. And like I said, those healthcare professional mentor type of roles, so that we can bring as many. So to your point, having one navigator for a zone is not going to be enough. We know that. So our hope is to really build it in a way that there's a community of supports for Ukrainian, and as you can well imagine, Adam, for all international communities that we are building. So this program is going to be really big. And Nova Scotia is being seen as a leader, even nationally, in terms of how we are approaching it in a very comprehensive way. So I'm very positive and hopeful that we will continue to, this is an opportunity for us to really work with these highly qualified and trained professionals. And we really hope to make the most of it as we work together. So I'm very eager to continue to share success stories with you if we had more opportunities such as this.
Well, as we're starting to wind down this conversation, Tara Sampali, I wanted to pick up on a point that you'd made just a moment ago about how Nova Scotia is respected within the international community in terms of bringing different doctors and nurses and other medical professionals from different cultural backgrounds. And this is not something that happened just last year or even in the last 5 years. This is something the province has been doing for many years, decades even. So have the success stories in integrating medical professionals from different parts of the world into the Nova Scotia system over even the last 20 and 30 years been helpful in terms of the department reaching out to Ukrainian healthcare professionals in this current stage?
Yeah, and it is important to note that while we have been doing this for a while and there are pockets of great work, I would say the more of the integrated work where we have really brought ourselves to this approach that is more comprehensive, learning from some of the gaps that have existed, and they continue to exist. But I think we are putting some measures in place. Even, for instance, the English proficiency is not a new thing as a barrier, but only recently have we realized how important it is to do that quickly. I think the pandemic has also created a whole different space. And the staffing shortages across globally is another leverage for us to change the way we have this conversation in every approach we are doing. We know we need to do things quickly. It cannot be a makeshift one-year project for every professional, and the frustrations are high. So I would say, Adam, if we were looking at this comprehensive kind of a responsive approach, it's only in the recent past that we've all come together across as a system to do this work. And I would say I'm seeing the benefit of that kind of an approach versus pockets of groups taking it on themselves. So I really feel the success of this kind of a unified approach is starting to pay off already and will continue to see the success. And that's one of the reasons why Nova Scotia is being seen with a great deal of interest, because we have come together in this way to address this massive of an opportunity that we have to work with professionals.
We have covered a lot of ground in just a few minutes, as I thought we might. Did you want to add anything else to our conversation just before we wrap it up here?
Yeah, I would just have to say that we are so fortunate, and I'd like to convey that to the Ukrainian community and all international professionals who are in the province and in Canada, that Nova Scotia is really wanting to work with each of you. We are also navigating a lot of pathways and barriers that need to be overcome. So we are really very thankful for the patience that people have been providing as well from their end. I know it can be frustrating, but for you to know that we want to work with you.
Well, we have appreciated you giving your perspective and your thoughts on this program, not just for recruiting Ukrainian healthcare professionals, but recruiting professionals from around the world. So we wish you well, and we thank you, Tara Sampali, for giving us a couple of moments here on Talil Community Television today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate it.
Tara Sampali is a Senior Director for Nova Scotia Health. We've been speaking to her from her office via Zoom. And there you have it. That wraps up this week's edition of Roundtable. Thank you for tuning in, and a big thank you to my interview guests this week from the Department of Health and Wellness, Tara Sampali, and the participants in our latest Municipal Government Roundtable, Krista Luddington, Jason Aucoin, and Melanie Sampson. If you have any thoughts or comments about what you've seen or heard over the past hour on Roundtable, or you'd just like to connect with me with some ideas for future editions of the show, I'd love to hear from you. You can contact me directly. My phone number is 902-625-8863, and you can reach me by email using the address adamjrcook, cook with an E, @gmail.com. You can also contact Talil Community Television directly with your commentary and your suggestions. The station phone number in Arashat is 902-226-1928, and the best email address to use is talil@talil.tv. As always, you can follow Talil Community Television on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And our YouTube channel features every single episode of Roundtable, including this one, as well as our sister program Talil 24/7, and all kinds of great new programming from my Talil colleagues, including French language programming from the newest member of the Talil news team, Gabrielle Sampson. For now, I'm Adam Cook. Thank you very much for tuning into this week's edition of Roundtable. I look forward to seeing you again soon with a brand new show. Bye for now.